Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. I am Sharon Green Middleton, Vice President of the City Council, Representative of the 6th District, and Chairperson of the Economic and Community Development Committee. This afternoon, the committee will hear Bill 21-0083RO. And in attendance, the members of the committee, we have Councilman John Bullock of the 9th District.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
We have Mark Conway of the 4th District.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I see Antonio Glover of the 13th District. Odette Ramos of the 14th District.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And Robert Stokes of the 12th District. And checking to see if there's just any additional council members. We definitely have Christopher Burnett of the 8th District and sponsor of this bill. And from the Council President's Office, we have Nikki Thompson.
Madam
Lucy
Chair.
Font. Thank you. Lucy Font.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And from the office of the mayor's staff, we have Nina Thimulis.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And also I see Sophia. And just checking. Okay, moving forward. Before we begin, I would like to remind you that if you are not speaking, please keep yourself on mute. Do not take yourself off of mute until you are recognized. When recognized, please identify yourself. Once you have finished speaking, please put yourself back on mute. Bill, let's begin. Bill 21-0083R. Investigative hearing, Baltimore City Sheriff's Office, eviction procedures. For the purpose of inviting representatives from the Baltimore City's Sheriff's Office, the Department of Housing and Community Development, concerned citizens and other interested parties to appear before the City Council to inform the Council about the current procedure followed by the Sheriff's Office during the eviction process, any recurring problems that need to be addressed, any improvements that can be made to facilitate communication of the Sheriff's Office ability to appear at a residence on a designated day and time, and any efforts to improve general eviction procedures. And basically just to add that this is just very good timing. The sponsor of the bill and I just thought it was just perfect timing in lieu of the problems that we are having now. So thank you, Councilman Chris Burnett, for agreeing to move forward with this bill. This bill was introduced on December 6th, 2021. And of course, the bill sponsor is Councilman Burnett. Councilman Burnett, would you like to speak about the bill at this time?
I would. Thank you, Madam Chair and colleagues, for joining us on this important topic. So I did have a quick thing I wanted to say about it. And so we brought this resolution to the council because we've been getting numerous complaints from tenants, landlords, and housing advocates around evictions, illegal evictions, and lockouts. And most importantly, issues with no notice being given to tenants once the eviction has been filed, and then when it is scheduled with the mayor's office as far as communicating out resources available. And no shots at anybody in that, but this is what we're hearing. We have heard from both sides the challenges that are contributing to the housing crisis, homelessness, and hardship for our residents. And we initiated this internal conversation within my office on the need to have this hearing back in actually June of 2021, when we received a call from a constituent who was desperately seeking housing resources. She and her child had been evicted from their apartment for failure to pay. My staff did some investigating to find that although there was a judgment in favor of the property management group, the eviction was done illegally. No notice was given to the tenant prior to the court date or the scheduled eviction, and the sheriff's office did not post the scheduled date to the tenant's door, and nor were they present during the eviction. The property management group evicted her and her children while she was at work and took possession of all of her belongings. It wasn't until months later that she would contact our office seeking assistance. Unfortunately, because of the amount of time that had passed, she had little recourse other than hiring a civil attorney who would pursue a civil claim against the property management company. After numerous referrals to various agencies, as well as community organizations, she and her family are still in a situation of unstable housing, and her story is not unique. While Baltimore City has had a housing crisis well before the COVID-19 pandemic, the situation has become significantly more dire as we see an unprecedented number of evictions being filed, a spike in illegal evictions, and the majority of the time, tenants are given no notice, as well as reports from landlords who are facing significant challenges trying to lawfully evict tenants, whether it's because of the sheriff's office not showing up at the scheduled time or delaying the eviction in anticipation of an emergency rental assistance payments. And again, noting that we all understand the challenges that every agency is facing, and so the intent is not to throw blame around in this hearing, but to hear from folks who've experienced these evictions and work on solutions together to make this very difficult situation better for all of us. And with that, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Burnett. And I also want to recognize a member of the committee, Councilman Dorsey of the 3rd District has joined us.
I apologize for being late. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And I also want to I understand today is a person's birthday. And I just want to give a shout out to Councilwoman Odette Ramos. Today is her birthday. Sorry you have to spend part of your time at this hearing.
No problem. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem. Does the committee have any questions to the sponsor before we move on? Hearing none, the committee will now hear from agency representatives, and we'll go ahead and start with the city solicitor's office.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Elena DePietro from the Baltimore City Law Department, and the Law Department stands by its report on this bill.
Thank you, Elena. The city administrator's office, Faith Leach. Deputy
Yes,
Mayor Faith
I'm here.
Leach.
So I'm here on behalf of the city administrator's office, but I'm also here in my dual capacity as the interim executive director of the mayor's office of children and family success. And I do want to actually have a presentation and do want to provide a little bit more background and context on the city's efforts around eviction prevention, if it so moves the council.
So, okay, we'll go ahead. Sponsor of the bill, did you want to go ahead and start that presentation, or did you want me to get through the other agencies? Or is there a certain setup that you would like?
I didn't have any preference. However you want to run it, Madam Chair, on that end.
Okay, go ahead. Faith, you're on.
Awesome. So I think Alexandra Smith from my team is going to be sharing her screen and sharing the presentation.
Okay.
I'm hoping to have it up in just a moment.
And that's Ally Smith.
Yes. Hi, Madam Vice President.
Okay. Hello, Ally. We're moving you up as a presenter.
Thank you.
And you're on.
It's telling me that it's going to shut down. It's going to restart the WebEx before it will present it. So sorry about that, but it looks like I'll be back in just a second. I don't know why it's doing that.
No problem. No problem at all. All this technology that we have to, it has taught us to be very patient.
Um, this actually would be for, I guess, is Jennifer Coates running the WebEx, Madam Chair? I just need somebody elevated. Or whoever it is. Marcus, I put it in the chat.
Marcus Scott.
Yeah. He's with the United Way. Oh, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Thanks, Jennifer.
And I'm sorry for, I apologize for the delay here, but I figured since we have been, the hearing was about evictions, that we should provide more context and background on where the city is with our eviction prevention program. And so I wanted to be able to share a more extensive update with the council. So hopefully we'll have the slides up shortly.
So what we're going to do, I guess, while we're waiting, we can circle back and go ahead and start with the Baltimore City Sheriff's Office. And I know Jason Cruz, did I say your name right?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yes. Did you want to go ahead and say some words while we're waiting?
Well, I think a lot of the problems are the courts. It's so slow to get an eviction for a landlord to us.
Could you just recognize, say who you are and your
Yes.
title and so on first? Thank
Major
you.
Jason Cruz with the Baltimore City Sheriff's Office, Chief of Operations. I also have my lieutenant who runs the division that the evictions take place out of, in case there's any questions I can't answer. Did you want me to start answering the questions I had received earlier, or just?
You can probably start by just going over the process that you follow in the sheriff's office as far as in that evictions office.
When the landlord files with the courts for the failure to pay rent, then the landlord and the tenant get a court date. When they go to that court date, then the court will make a judgment, and if it goes to eviction, we get what's called a warrant of restitution. That's what allows us to do an eviction. We will receive that approximately 14 to 15 days after the judgment has been granted by the court, and then it's up to the landlord to call our office to schedule the eviction. The warrant is good for 60 days from the date it was signed by the judge. Once we schedule the eviction with the landlord, the eviction is scheduled at least 14 days out because the landlord is required by law to post the property with the eviction date and time. And they're also required to do a certificate of mailing. When the sheriff comes to the eviction, the sheriff checks the affidavit. It has to have the signature, date, and time of posting. We check to make sure it was posted at least 14 days prior to the eviction, and they have to show the certificate of mailing. If they do not have any of that paperwork, the eviction's canceled. As far as scheduling evictions, the landlord's given a date and a time block. We'll say between 9 and 10 or 10 and 11. And the reason we do that is because we used to give them exact times and deputies would get tied up and then be late to the eviction. If we get to the eviction and the landlord is not there, deputies are required to wait at least 10 minutes. They take a picture of the property, they call the office, and it's written down what time the deputy called, what time they arrived, and they have a photo saying that they were there. Cancellation of evictions due to weather, that is done through Judge Weinstein's office, makes that call. So on a day where it's raining or maybe too cold or too hot, at 8:30, we have to call Judge Weinstein's office and she'll make the ruling whether to go with evictions or cancel them. If they're canceled that day, they'll be rescheduled. They're not canceled for good. They'll just be rescheduled for another day.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions at this point while we're waiting for Deputy Mayor Leach and
Yes, Madam Chair.
yes,
I have a
go
question.
ahead. Yes.
But actually, Madam Chair, is it okay if I defer initially to the bill sponsor? Let him go first? Thank you.
Sure. Go ahead, Councilman Burnett.
Thank you. So I did have a couple questions for the sheriff's office. So the first one, one of the things that we've heard repeatedly, and there could be any number of reasons that an eviction will be rescheduled, but when it does, can you talk about the notice that is required to be given to the tenant on when the new date is being scheduled?
I'm asking my lieutenant.
At that time, we don't give reschedule because we try to make it quickly as possible. So therefore, they know that they are getting evicted. So after that, we don't give a date to them.
So Lieutenant,
But the
could you say your name and your position, please, for the record?
Lieutenant Larry Salmon. I work in district court and eviction.
Thank you.
We're not required to give a date to the tenant because the date is already instilled at that moment that they are gonna have to leave the property.
So it's possible that if evictions were canceled on a Thursday due to rain, they would be rescheduled for Friday. And the tenant was already notified that the day before was going to be their eviction date.
Okay. So you're saying because they've been giving the initial date, they aren't given any additional information from that point on?
Correct. For failure to pay rent, the landlord has to post the property. If it's a cancellation, the court does not require a second posting.
Okay. I mean, I'll come back. I would say it may be that creates a little bit of confusion in our experience for some folks on both the tenants side who may be still trying to seek accommodations or having to get things out. But we've also had instances in which a eviction took place of a squatter that had illegally detained a property. The landlord had scheduled or not the landlord, the property owner, they weren't renting, had scheduled to have their locks changed and had to pay a fee in order to get the locksmith to come out after removing the person who was there illegally. And there was no notice provided to them. So they ended up having to pay for the person to not be able to do the work and then bring them back out. And so I would just ask for a reconsideration of that in that instance. The other question I had is that we've received a number of complaints around trying to confirm like the confirmation of when things are scheduled. So we've had individuals call to inquire whether or not an eviction is going to occur. And we've had instances where we've been told it's not possible to share that information, which often leaves the tenant in limbo or the property owner in limbo. And so I guess how is information shared? Are you said that the property owners are required to do the postings, but we've also had instances where that information isn't being posted, and so we have tenants that just simply do not know what's happening, and they're often calling our office trying to figure out one rapid rehousing assistance or other tools, but also just don't know when or if, and it just sort of leaves them in real limbo and not knowing what lies in the future for them.
Well, first, we have a list 13 days prior to the eviction for a date that's coming up. We fax that list for each date to Public Justice. So Public Justice has the list. When tenants call and ask us when the eviction is, we refer them to Public Justice. We give them the number. Public Justice works with them at that point. Tells them when their eviction is, offers whatever assistance they can give them. Going back a little bit to your situation with the squatter, the property owner has to call us to schedule that. We cannot schedule any eviction unless the property owner calls to schedule with us. Those situations, the property owner is not required to post the property, but the sheriff's office does it for safety reasons, just so at least the people in their squatting know that the sheriffs are coming to put them out on a certain day. And they don't have to wait the two weeks. We can schedule it's called a wrongful detainer, like 3-4 days after the landlord calls, if we have space to put it in. And no eviction is ever legal unless the sheriff's there. So if anybody has ever evicted and the sheriff's not there, it's an illegal eviction. So, I mean, we even cancel evictions if the landlord was in the property before we arrived. They're not allowed to enter the property till we get there, check all the paperwork, make sure it's done legally, and then the eviction proceeds.
Okay, and in instances, so we've had calls, and that's my last question, Mr. Chair or Madam Chair, and I know others have. We've had instances in which folks have complained that there was just no information shared with them. What is the recourse that we should be advising people to prevent homelessness, essentially, where the housing advocates may not have time to rapid rehouse people, and we may, or trying to seek information and no one really seems to know where to go. So in instances where, I guess, speak to what could lead to there just being no posting, because we've had that complaint from folks that don't know each other. So it's it has to be some sort of trend there if people are experiencing the same thing.
But the deputy checks the paper. It's an affidavit that the landlord has to fill out, stating the date, time, and their signature on it, that when they posted the property. If they have that, there's no way for us to actually prove that they posted it, but they also have to have that certificate of mailing that has the information of the eviction in there as well. So they have to mail it to the house, and they have to post it. The mailing's got to be 14 days prior, and the posting's 7 days prior. Yeah, certified by the post office.
All right, there was somebody said something in the back. I don't know if that was for us.
But the certificate of mailing, he said it's certified by the post office that it was delivered. So, doesn't mean the person got it. They just certify that they delivered it. It used to be required signatures. People weren't signing for them, so now they just do a certificate of mailing, not certified mail.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll have more for later.
Okay, before I get to Councilman Dorsey, just to piggyback on a question, I guess a little bit more specific. When residents get evicted, that they, it's almost like an emergency crisis. They're already in a situation where, they are getting put out of a house, and it's because of lack of, late payments or something. So they are at a high risk of experiencing some type of mental health crisis, or even the situation could lead to a mental health related crisis. Are there any initiatives or procedures that you have in place to support evicted residents with mental health?
We do not have anything in place, but if we have run across like a vulnerable adult or where there's a bunch of children there, we refer them to, adult protective services, have them come out to the scene before we leave, or social services, tell them what's going on. A lot of times they have us bring the kids to them. But for mental health, there's no resources that we have to give them.
So that also includes maybe suicidal situations, or are officers, tell me this, are officers trained in any of these things to recognize signs when you go through this process?
Yes, they had best training, and if somebody's visibly like that while we're at the scene, we'll do an emergency petition, take them to the hospital.
Is the training ongoing? I mean, do you say someone that's been a sheriff for 10, 15 years, do you have consistent ongoing training?
Yeah, not the so-called best training, which is the initial, but yearly in service, they go over training in different areas of mental health.
Okay. And I'll stop there. And Councilman Dorsey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. When the sheriff's office posts, first of all, I heard a couple times you say landlord has an obligation to post or give notice. Can you clarify first for me that the sheriff's office does post notice at a property of a scheduled eviction, correct?
We post the original failure to pay rent notice with the court date. Once the landlord schedules the eviction, the landlord has to do the certified mailing and then post the property. And they have to show proof.
Okay, so the sheriff's office notifies the tenant that the landlord has filed an eviction complaint.
Correct. It's called a failure to pay rent notice.
Failure to pay rent notice. And where does the sheriff's office post that?
Right on the front door.
What if it's a multi-unit building?
The common entrance to the building.
The common entrance to the building.
Correct.
Has that always been the case?
For a year or two, maybe, they had made us post the individual apartment. The problem was then we had to get keys because a lot of these places are locked. Deputies were carrying around keys, and it was just not practical for them to do all these postings. Approximately, I mean, some areas would get 10,000 rent notices a day.
Deputies were carrying around keys, like what? The keys were being given to the deputy by the landlord, and the deputy was giving the key back to the deputy, the landlord, after they had gone into the building, or what?
Landlords had to come down here. We had a key box for each district, and they had put their property address on there, and they left a key at our office so we could post the properties.
Okay. And you said that for a year or two they were making you do this. I think that's how you kind of put it. You said for a year or two they were making us. Who's they, and who was complying with that? And when were those year or two?
This was years ago. I mean, maybe early 2000s, and I think it was legislation down in Annapolis that stopped that, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I know when we first took over the constable's office in 1998, we were posting the common entrance, and then there was legislation put in, I believe, that they wanted us to post the individual property, and then it went back and forth, but it was a long time ago, and I was not involved in the process. I recall that because I was a deputy then, actually working in that unit.
Yeah, so unless somebody can actually produce legislation to verify that, which I cannot do, I think that that's incorrect. I do not believe that it's constitutional for the sheriff's office to post to the common area, and that in fact the sheriff's office is required to post to the individual door. And I believe that because of a 2001 opinion from the Office of the Attorney General of the state of Maryland that says specifically that that in multi-unit building, a sheriff must post summons on apartment rather than in common area. So I'd like to know who's going to be in charge of complying with the law going forward.
Well, I can send an email to our Attorney General to get clarification on that.
Great. And to whom should I send this copy of the existing Attorney General's opinion to expedite them looking into this and getting back to us as quickly as possible?
You can send it to our committee staff, and they will transfer that, and they'll get it to the Attorney General's office. And they'll do the whole process.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. I probably have some other questions, but I think I just ran a kind of a long line of questions there. I'd like to let Councilwoman Ramos or somebody else go at this point. Thank you.
Councilwoman Ramos, your hand was raised. Okay, you're on.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, colleagues. Thank you, Councilman Burnett, for bringing this to us. And this is a very important issue. Question for the Sheriff's Office. You mentioned when Vice President Middleton asked you the question about what resources you provide, whether it's mental health or whatever, as people are being evicted. It's a traumatic experience. You had mentioned that sometimes if there's children involved, that you get CPS involved. Are the children then separated from the parent during this extremely traumatic time?
No, ma'am.
So what happens? Can you describe that for me, please?
I'm gonna let my lieutenant.
What happened is that once we get registrar used to help us out in housing to relocate, house the parents and the kids. We never separated. We never got involved with that. But since registrar have moved on, we call the city and ask for their assistance. So they are helping us up right now for that.
Who in the city?
Department of Social Service. I don't have the names and stuff because I'm not at my desk. So I get the information and forward to you.
Yes, forward to our committee. And what is your could you say your name again, sir? We're writing this down.
Lieutenant Salmon.
Lieutenant Salmon.
And you don't
Follow up on that? So if the family has children and you call someone from Housing or Department of Social Services to try to get them at least some temporary housing, is that what I'm hearing?
Correct. And also we contact Matt Hill from Public Justice. He helped us out with some resources that we can use because we always want to be in communicating with everybody. We just don't go and let people stay on the street if they have mental concerns or if they have physical disability. We don't do that.
I appreciate that. I'm sure this is a very tough job for your officers because kicking people out of their homes is not fun. So that's all I have for right now. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. And just to add to that, now that we've been in this pandemic for a while, did you change anything in your format of delivery of services since, and this is just through the pandemic?
Well, for a long time during the pandemic, there was a moratorium on evictions. When evictions started back, we were in communication with Public Justice and the mayor's office because there was funds for people who were affected by COVID that they would pay their rent. And that's why we were getting them the list 14 days prior so they could reach out to the people. We used to put that list out to Public Justice 7 days prior. So they had the list a week longer to research and try to get a hold of folks.
Okay, thank you. Any other committee members have any questions before I circle back? And seeing none, and we're back with the sponsor, Councilman Burnett.
Yes. So the question I had was around the posting. Or is there been consideration given? So I know you said that there's. Sorry, let me step back. You said earlier that there was a required, or that the post office will provide some verification that the notification was delivered, not necessarily that the tenant or the property owner saw it. Um, is Are there requirements that either the property owner like send a photo, or if the sheriff is posting what appears to be in common areas or elsewhere, that there's any sort of third party verification that any notice was given, and that the information was actually posted? Because we've had, again, a number of folks call saying that they did not get notice until things were already underway. Um, how does your office verify that what was supposed to happen did happen?
Just that the landlord has to produce that certificate of mailing as well as the affidavit signed from the district court saying they posted the property. And the lieutenant has something.
Yeah, how you doing, sir? Also, if you guys don't know, before the landlord do the process, they have to mail a letter to the resident or the tenants that they're applying to get a court date for a warrant of restitution. So that's another step before the whole thing process happens for eviction. So landlords require to mail out a letter 10 days before they even apply for a warrant or a court date.
Well, I got that, but that would be the court date would be before the eviction is underway. The complaints that we're getting to my office is that there's no notification following that court date when the eviction has been scheduled, that people are not getting notice, are unaware that the date is coming, that an eviction is actually happening, which again is putting people in a situation where themselves or their families may be experiencing unnecessary homelessness, because they did not know it was coming. And so that's sort of where I'm trying to get at, is that obviously there's notification around the court date, but following that judgment, there's a number of people who are unaware or not aware that there's an eviction forthcoming.
I mean, if the landlord can produce the paperwork that they're required to produce, there's no way for us to see if it was actually done. They have the certificate and they have the affidavit. That's all we have to go by.
So I guess it goes back to the original question I had, was that could you all, or would it need to be legislated that there be an additional verification of that notification being presented to the person actually impacted by the eviction?
I mean, we could do our own posting as well, just like we do for the breach of leases or tenant holding over the squatter situation. We put a posting on the door. It's something we could do.
And maybe we can require the landlord to take a photograph of the posting on the door, like we do when we had to go and get cancel eviction. So maybe this should be falling on the landlord to take an actual photograph of the door at the time of eviction. We can look at it, and then we can proceed from there.
That sounds like a good beginning. I just want to also let the committee know I received the email from committee member Dorsey that there is a 2001 Attorney General opinion stating that in multi-dwelling buildings, the sheriff must post notice to individual unit doors, not the common entrance or the other common area. So we'll make sure that the sheriff's office gets a copy of that as well. And the Attorney General. Councilman Burnett, Any other questions at this time, or should I move on to the next person?
Yeah, I had just one more recommendation. In addition to, I really do think that you should be either requiring photo or ideally doing the posting yourself, so that at least we know a law enforcement officer can verify that the tenant was notified. The other thing that I wanted to toss out as a solution to better support the process. So one of the issues that our office has experienced was the lack of confirmation from the sheriff's office on whether or not an eviction that is scheduled is confirmed. And so similar to jury duty, would the sheriff's office be willing to set up a call line where an eviction has an assigned number and they can call the morning of to see if their eviction is confirmed? Do you have the ability or capacity to set up something like that where people would be able to call and verify, okay, this is happening today. I need to get my family ready and out the door because it is pending.
I'd have to talk to IT department, BSIT, but I think that's something they could probably do.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I know I saw other hands up, so I'll step back.
Okay, we'll add that to the list. Councilwoman Ramos, was your hand
Yeah,
up? Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Vice President. But I just wanted to follow up on the sponsor's point. And I appreciate the sheriff's office, taking these into consideration. Is there anything that we need to legislate, or the General Assembly has to legislate to make sure that the photo piece and, it sounds like you can just do that, but if you're getting resistance from the landlord saying, no, I don't have to do that, what do we have to do to make sure that they get a photo of the posting?
I'll have to get back to you on what would have to be done to make that happen.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Right, and the sponsor is taking notes. Just want to make that awareness. Any other council members have any questions at this time before we
Yes,
move
Madam Chair, I
on?
do have one other question.
Yes, Councilman Dorsey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess just in general, we are still in a pandemic. What's to stop the sheriff's office, or what's the rationale behind the sheriff's office, not just continuing to suspend evictions for the time being until we reach some, acceptably low threshold for testing or something to that effect, or just a basic assumption that we're creating hardship on an already struggling population in general.
The sheriff nor the mayor have the authority to cancel evictions. We get paperwork from the court. We're required by law to execute that paperwork. The only one that can put a moratorium on the evictions is the governor.
But beyond a moratorium, there's got to be some leeway where the sheriff's office has to have some level of discretion, right?
No, it comes from the court. It's a legal court document, and the landlord wants to follow through. We're required to execute the court order.
I'm sorry. So there is no circumstance under which the sheriff's office has the discretion to delay for any period of time?
No. Only if we go there and we think something's got to go back to court, we send it back to court, and then the judge will make a ruling, and then he can send us back out there to do the eviction.
And so there is no circumstance under which the sheriff's office has any leeway regarding general health, human considerations, or anything of that sort.
Not on us, just for not doing evictions scale. Everything's case by case. Like I said, we may run into a situation where there's a vulnerable adult or somebody who's, handicapped. And then we take, the proper steps from that point on. But just to stop evictions, we cannot do that.
Your main job is to schedule the evictions, is that correct?
Schedule and execute, yes.
Yes. So, Councilman Dorsey, kind of just to add to that, I know that your offices really are kind of housed in the courthouse. Do you have a referral system or a place where maybe an added place where anyone that is interested in eviction prevention or legal services, mental health services, is there a place you have there where they can also go there and get that information?
We're in the circuit court. The evictions come out of the district court.
Okay.
I'm not familiar, but I believe they have things down at the district court.
Okay. Thank you.
Madam
Councilman
Chair, I'm sorry. I'm still trying to suss this out just a little bit. If you could indulge me. What is it? I don't quite understand the concept of kind of returning to return service. Is that something that you can explain?
And what do you mean by return service?
Like when a person is when you are issued a court order, is there any circumstance under which you can return that to the court?
Summonses or orders, we have to make attempts, and if we cannot contact the person, we non-est send it back to the court. That wouldn't fall under the same thing as a warrant of restitution. There's summonses that we can't serve that have to be personally served, and we cannot make personal contact with the person, so they would be returned to the court after considerable attempts had been made.
But in the case of an eviction, you don't have to actually make contact with the tenant ever.
No. There's plenty of times when they go to, more often than not, the tenant's not present, because the deputy is required to call the office at the time of eviction, tell them whether the tenant was present or not, and they do fill out a sheet in the main office and send it to the district court.
And I guess the last thing is when you schedule, and I think that you covered this, but if you could reiterate this, I'd really appreciate it. When you schedule an eviction, you have a time frame within which you must schedule that eviction?
The warrant's good for 60 days. So if the landlord does not call in those 60 days, that warrant is sent back to the court. It's no longer good. If the landlord calls within the 60 days, we schedule at least 14 days out.
At least 14 days out.
And so that the landlord can comply with what they have to do.
Just curious, what happens if you fail to schedule?
If they call and it's good, we schedule. There's never been a time when somebody's called and we have not scheduled unless there was a problem with the warrant.
What would happen if you just declined to schedule or failed to schedule? Even though that's never happened before, what would happen? What would be the ramification of that for you?
For me,
Yeah.
I mean, we're required constitutionally to do it by, that's part of the oath that my sheriff took to make sure we carry out the duties that we're required to do. So I mean, there would probably be severe punishment for me if I told them just to stop.
Or maybe we should say delay the eviction as well. How would you be able to handle a delay in your scheduling?
I don't know how much of a delay.
You have that authority to pick that time of delay, correct?
Well, some are delayed because we can't get it in within 2 or 3 weeks. Some we have to schedule a month out because certain districts are just have big complexes and have a, heavy load of work and evictions. So it's not always that they're going to get a date 14 days from the day they're calling. It may be 21, 25 days, just depending on the schedule of the workload that deputy has.
Okay.
But for that matter, it could be 60 or 90 days. There's nothing
No,
to say that it has to be
the warrant has to
14
be
or
executed.
25 or 30.
The warrant has to be executed within 60 days.
I see.
So at this point, I'm feeling we probably need to hear from some of the other agencies so we can kind of see some of the partnership and the flow of how the whole complete process happens. And then also we still have public testimony that we have to hear as well. So let's go ahead and thank you, Sheriff's Office, for being patient and going through some processes with us. Let's go ahead back to Deputy Mayor Faith Leach. Are you ready for us?
I am.
All right, you're on.
Awesome. All right. Good afternoon, members of the council. First, I want to thank all of you for being partners and supporting our neighbors that are facing eviction. Each of you have sent emails, text messages, phone calls advocating for residents who are facing eviction. It will take all of us to stem the eviction crisis in Baltimore. My name is Faith Leach. I'm the Deputy Mayor of Equity, Health, and Human Services and Interim Executive Director of the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success. The Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success has been asked to respond to City Resolution 21-0083R, an investigative hearing about the current procedure followed by the Sheriff's Office during the eviction process. MOCFS stands by our bill report. My testimony and presentation today will provide an overview of the eviction prevention program administered by the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success and provide an overview of key programs and partnerships, including the Pandemic Rent Court program and our partnership with the Sheriff's Office. So the U.S. was facing a housing crisis long before the COVID-19 pandemic, fueled by the lack of affordable housing, specifically affordable rental units, lack of wage growth, and historic racial inequities embedded in our housing system. It is estimated that pre-pandemic, 1 in every 20 households in the U.S. owed rental arrears. In Baltimore, pre-pandemic, our rental crisis was above the national average. Pre-pandemic, 1 out of every 10 renters in Baltimore owed some amount of arrearages. The pandemic and its disproportionate impact on low-income Black and Latinx households quickly exacerbated the housing crisis. By April 22, 1 in every 5 households owed rental arrears, and by June of 2020, nearly 1 in 3 households in the city owed rental arrears. DACD estimates that the number of households owing rental arrears doubled due to the pandemic. Next slide. Much like jurisdictions across the country, in June 2020, Baltimore established a temporary rent support program, a short-term initiative with limited reach administered by the Department of Housing and Community Development. By November 2020, with the influx of local, federal, and state resources, we established the Eviction Prevention Program, now administered by the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success, with support from DACD, the Mayor's Office of Homeless Services, and key partners like the United Way. As of January 21st, 2022, our BCAP team has received more than 27,000 applications for rental assistance, and we have over 5,000 applications remaining in our queue. The work of our eviction prevention team is driven by the core tenets of equity, accessibility, community, and or locally driven support. For equity, just given the sheer demand for assistance and the large number of individuals seeking support in Baltimore, we prioritize those households who are most at risk of eviction. To support these households, we have expanded our partnerships to include a partnership with the courts and the Sheriff's Office to avert pending evictions. Angela Whitaker on my team will provide more details on both of those programs in the coming slides. Accessibility, we are continuously working to evolve our program by streamlining our processes, enhancing our use of data and technology to strengthen our systems and controls and the end user experience. This is a work in progress and part of our continuous improvement. It is our goal to lower the barriers to accessing assistance. We assist customers over the phone, and prior to the Omicron surge, we assisted customers by appointment in person in our community action partnership centers. Locally driven collaboration or community driven support. We have partnered with trusted community partners to spread the word about all of the services offered at our CAP centers. Self-sufficiency is our North Star. As such, where possible, we connect clients to additional supports offered at our sister agencies and through trusted community partners. We also offer case management services. Next slide. So this chart provides a breakdown of all of the funding sources for the eviction program as of January 1st, 2022. To date, we have been awarded $82 million and we have expended $33 million. We have approximately $48 million to spend on the city program. Additionally, we anticipate another $16 million from the state that will be awarded directly to the United Way to process bulk applications through the STEP program. We plan to expedite deployment of the remaining $48 million by adding substantial processing capacity, contracting for call center support, and expanding our work with key partners and community organizations. We are also leveraging the technical expertise of housing consultants that have managed some of the largest and most progressive eviction prevention programs in the country. I am now going to turn it over to Angela Whitaker, Director of the Baltimore City Community Action Partnership, to discuss key partnerships, including the Pandemic Rent Court Program and the partnership with the Sheriff's Office.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Leach, and thank you, Council, for the opportunity to present to you all today. As Deputy Mayor Leach alluded to earlier, as we navigated the most difficult time, one of the most difficult times in the city to prevent an eviction crisis, we found it necessary to leverage partnerships so that we can expand and work more efficiently. Among those partnerships are United Way, Public Justice Center, and community organizations that are trusted among the Latinx and Hispanic communities. Through our United Way partnership, United Way has been leveraged to administer a bulk rent support program. And so what that means is that they take applications directly from the landlords and they complete the applications for their whole multi-housing unit. And what that allows is more efficient processing, timelier processing, and easier, it creates less burden and stress for the tenants. And also we have encountered increasingly cases where tenants and landlords weren't able to reach agreement or the units were inhabitable. And so we partnered with United Way to run a relocation program. And through that program, United Way provides case management services and works directly with tenants to find new housing units. Through our partnership with Public Justice, they provide legal support to tenants that has been discussed earlier, and specifically in partnership with MOCFS and BCAP, they work to prevent illegal evictions, to mediate difficult tenant-landlord relationships, and they've also worked with us to help reach settlements between landlords and tenants. And finally, with the Hispanic and Latinx communities, we found historically that that was a difficult population for us to engage just because of their lack of trust for government agencies. And so we partnered with Southeast Community Development Corporation, Casa de Maryland, and Latino Economic Development Center, who are trusted Latinx providers in the community, and they've worked with us to provide case management services. They complete applications on behalf of the limited English proficient community, and they also serve as advocates, and they share specific needs, the community needs, with the BCAP team. And we've also, September the 13th, we launched the Pandemic Rent Court in partnership with the District Rent Court, along with Public Justice Center and other legal advocates. And we felt it necessary to do that because throughout the eviction process, there were many tenants who fell through the cracks, didn't know about the program, and found themselves in eviction court. And so we have staff that's on site every day, and the rent judge, they send them to our offices at the rent court. And we provide on-site assistance to complete applications, to provide resources and referrals. And the goal is through that program that we kind of mitigate and avoid evictions that are pending and imminent at that very time. And through this process, we've assisted 496 tenants, and we've averted or delayed or had dismissed 123 eviction cases through this partnership. The partnership continues, and it's been successful thus far, and we are hoping to expand that partnership with the rent court. Our final partnership that we'll talk about today, I think the sheriff talked about this earlier. We've also worked directly with the sheriff's office, where we receive a list of evictions 7 days in advance, and our team works directly with the sheriff department, landlords, and the tenants to go through our neighborly applications or our rent assistance applications to see who already have applications in the system. And we expedite those applications to stay evictions. And as soon as we go through that list, we contact the sheriff and we contact the landlord to let them know that we have found their application and that we are processing. And in almost all cases, landlords are willing to stay that, cancel that eviction, so that we can get that payment out to them. For tenants who don't have applications and for rent assistance, we have leveraged a partnership with Civic Works, who have community outreach specialists who go out door to door, and they provide assistance to customers who to complete applications on site. They have assisted about 102 applicants in that process, and to date we have diverted 75 evictions directly through this partnership. Excuse me.
Thank you. So at this point, so that was basically you, Faith, you gave the information in two roles, from the administrator's office and through your Office of Family and Children Success. And I do want to give a shout out to Angela Whitaker, which is a very strong leader of the Community Action Partnership, and just want to reveal that myself and Councilman Stokes are members of that board over the Community Action Center. So they do, I'm telling you, they do some wonderful hard work, and that's why it's called partnerships, because they do work with just about every agency in getting services. So our goal, I think, on this council is to have more community action centers, and I think that is probably going to happen. So thank you for your work and your total team, Deputy Mayor Leach. Any questions for the Deputy Mayor or Angela Whitaker? Yes, Councilwoman Ramos.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks for that presentation. Also, thanks to you both for answering my emails and phone calls to help our constituents. You've received many emails from me, so I appreciate your help. I had a question. I don't see on your slides, but did I miss it, of the number of people that we've served? Remember, we had a hearing about the program. I guess it was in August of last year. Oh, no, it was in June of last year. And so I wanted to see what the updated numbers were. At the time, we had helped 4,000 families. What is that number today? Did I miss it in the slides?
You did not. So Angela can pull the exact number, but it is close to 7,000. So it's close to 7,000 households and about 12,000 individuals.
Okay, and then we have lots more money to spend. And so are we it's my understanding that the federal government, especially with the federal money, allows for 18 months of rental assistance. Are we going to expand our qualifications to be able to do 18 months instead of just 12?
Yes. So just to provide a little bit of background. So as you saw in the chart, there are multiple funding sources. So our ERA 1 funding dollars, which were the initial dollars that we received from the federal government, they allowed for 12 months of rental assistance and then 3 months of future rent payments. So for a total of about 15 months support that we could provide tenants. But again, that was only 12 months of back rent support and then 3 months of future support. With ERA $2, which are the dollars that we are now tapping into from the federal government, they allow for 15 months of back rent support and then 3 months of rent forward, and we will be implementing that as well.
So you have not implemented that yet?
Yeah, well, with ERA, it depends on the funding source that we're using, right? So we happen to be using ERA 1, and our team is working close with our accounting office, and we actually tap into specific funding sources based on the needs of the clients that we have. We have just now been able to start tapping into our ERA $2. There's some challenges around our technology vendor and making sure that we can load the additional sources of funding into our portal, which we are able to do. And so now we are positioned to be able to provide up to about 18 months, but of course, 15 months of back and 3 months of forward rent.
And so I have a constituent who, has been in danger of eviction a couple of times and ends up having to go back to you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not based on when the request was, it's based on when that first request was, correct?
So it is based on how much assistance they have received, and this happens to, unfortunately, a lot of tenants in the city. We'll provide assistance one time, and we may max out at the 12 months. But with ERA 2, we can now tap into at least providing those additional 3 months to try to catch that tenant up. But again, it's all about the amount and the number of months of assistance that we've provided tenants.
So it's based on the tenant and where they live, not each time that they request. And then so you're starting you're going to announce that program soon. You're going to start to help people with the 18 months, like right away.
Yes, if we receive applications that require 15 months of arrears and 3 months of rent forward, we can process those applications and provide a full 18 months.
Mm-hmm. I have some other questions, but I'll let my colleagues go. Thank you.
Any other colleagues have questions for Deputy Mayor Leach? Councilman Dorsey.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Oh.
Deputy Mayor, I had to step away for a minute, but I don't think that you covered this. Forgive me if you have. Other jurisdictions are doing direct to tenant payments with assistance, rather than strictly paying directly to landlords. Are we doing that? And what's up with that?
Yep. So we have done very limited direct to tenant payments to date. In cases where we verified that landlords would not accept the payment from the city. We do have a process and procedures in place to expand our direct to tenant payments. But we do want to ensure that where possible, that we have landlords who participate in the city's program and sign our landlord agreement, which provides additional protections from eviction for tenants. So when a landlord signs our agreement, tenants are protected for an additional 90 days after that landlord has signed the agreement. With direct to tenant payments, tenants are not protected against eviction. And so we want to have as many tenants as possible coming to us through their landlord, so that landlords are at least on the hook for not evicting those tenants after they've received funding.
And so you said that you have policies, procedures in place now, but that you're seeking to expand them. Where can I find publicly available information on those policies and procedures right now?
So we haven't put them on our website yet, but they'll be going up. So this is something that that has been raised by advocates and of course council members around direct-to-tenant payment. And I've expressed some challenges around that and wanting to put the proper protocols in place. Our team has drafted that and we're in a position to provide that direct-to-tenant payment or expand on what we've already done. Because as I said, we look at each case by in the individual case, right? And so if there is a case where we have spoken to that landlord has declined to accept payment, we have the ability and we have done direct-to-tenant payment. It was not something that we widely advertised. With ERA 2, so again, now going back to the federal funds that we receive, so with these new federal funds, we are required to provide that direct-to-tenant payment. And so our team has put those policies in place now that we have ERA $2, and we will be expanding it, but I will put those policies and procedures on our website, and I'll make sure to get you a copy.
And
Yeah,
it also looks like Director Whitaker put in the chat that so far households that have been supported, 6,493 individuals. Household supported is 6,473, and then individual supported is 13,627. Go ahead, Councilman Dorsey. Another question?
No. So I just want to get clarification.
Mhm.
You have those policies written out. They're just not posted
Yes.
online. You can send them to
Yes.
me like now.
Yes,
If you
right
can
now.
send them to me now, that'd be great. I'd really appreciate that. I made a couple notes of some other questions here, Madam Chair.
Can we,
About tax consequences, just this is a simple, do we know of any tax consequences related to payment to either directly to tenants versus to directly to the landlord or anything like that? Is there any, is this regarded as income or what?
That is a really good question. I am unsure on the landlord side. I'm pretty sure on the tenant side, it is not counted as income, but Angela, can you confirm?
Yes, for landlords receiving payments directly from us, it is counted as income. They have to submit a W-9 in order to get their payment processed. For tenants that's receiving direct payment from us, it is not counted as income, and that has come out from the federal treasury.
Great. And so that, to clarify, that's whether the tenant is paid directly or whether it is paid to the landlord on behalf of the tenant, it is never considered income for the tenant. So there are no tax consequences for the tenant.
That's correct.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilman Burnett?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I just want to thank this office and your staff for all the work you do. Our office is in very frequent communication, making referrals, et cetera. So just want to say thank you, because I know we're talking at least once a day, sometimes more, is that we are at crisis levels in the city. So thank you all for being so responsive to us. The questions I had, I guess broadly speaking, what do you see as the biggest barriers that you're facing at preventing evictions of tenants across Baltimore City? So just broadly, what are some of the other barriers that have arisen since the office took on this work?
Yep. So I'm happy to start off, and then Angela's on the ground doing this work, so I would love for her to share her perspective from being on the front lines. So one of the largest, I think, challenges that I think that we face in just supporting tenants is capacity. Of course, we are in the middle of the pandemic, and our BCAP staff are also impacted by the pandemic. There was a point during the Omicron surge where I was closing a CAP center every single day because of COVID-19 outbreaks. And so we had to be able to quickly pivot so that our staff could provide services, of course, within the building, but then we also had to figure out a way for them to work from home, which they have not done at all during the pandemic. But there was so much disruption to our work that we had to figure out an alternative. So I think one is just the pandemic itself is challenging for everyone, including our staff who are working tirelessly to try to process these applications. The other challenge that I would say is definitely around our staff capacity. And I mentioned during the presentation that I plan to significantly expand the capacity of our staff so that we can process more applications. We have never stopped accepting applications. There are jurisdictions across this country who they would get to a certain point and they would pause their portals and not accept additional applications just because there were so many applications to process. We've never done that. So we're still every single day receiving about 25 additional applications on top of the applications that are in our queue, on top of the additional referrals. So we're also getting those folks who, we get on the sheriff's office list every week. We're getting those folks who are in the pandemic rent court. So it is a multifaceted process. And, we need to increase our staff capacity to be able to avert more evictions. And we have a plan and a strategy in place for that. Also, our call center, which I'm pretty sure a number of you have gotten some issues around the call center. We're adding contract capacity. So we're adding a contract call center just to be able to help us with the demand that we have. Because right now, our staff are having to play double duty. They're having to process applications and they have to answer phone calls. And so really, I just want to separate those functions so that we have a team that is dedicated to customer service and answering calls. And we have our processors who are focused on moving as many applications through the process as possible. I think we're going to hear from the United Way, but that partnership has been pivotal to preventing evictions within the city. And so we want to be able to expand that partnership with the United Way. They focus on the larger landlords and they do that bulk processing. We focus on the smaller landlords, and a lot of times the smaller landlords are really high touch, and there's a lot of back and forth that we have to do with the landlords, with the tenants, in order to get to a good place. The last thing that I will say that is a best practice that I've seen in other jurisdictions is mediation. And so right now our staff are kind of serving in this mediation capacity, but I think if we're able to add additional processing capacity, then that could free us up to do more of that mediation between the landlords and the tenants to help us get to a good place before going to eviction.
Okay. And as a quick follow-up, one, I would flag that there's someone in the chat that seems to have been having some communication issues with the office. And so if someone could reach out to Ms. Davis, that would be great.
I just did. Thank you.
Oh, perfect. Okay, good. I'm glad. I just want to make sure everyone saw that. So for the security deposit program that you offer, we know that a number of our constituents are having trouble finding new housing. Does your office have a list of property owners that you can refer people out to? And I guess what are the ways in which you all make contact with prospective property owners? Like, is there any way that the council can be of assistance in that way?
Yep. So I'll let Angela talk about our relocation efforts, but we do have a partnership with the United Way where, as I mentioned earlier, we look at each case individually. And so we determine what is the best course of action for each case, right? There are some times when we receive a case that it makes more sense for us to focus on relocation than for rental arrears, right? And so in those cases, we have that partnership with the United Way where we're able to provide some relocation support. But Angela, can you go into a little more detail about our relocation program?
Sure. As Deputy Mayor Leach shared, when we are processing applications, when there are difficulties or challenges that arise when it makes more sense to have the tenant relocate, we refer to United Way, and our housing stability coordinator works hand in hand with the United Way staff to kind of do some relocation support. Like I said before, they do case management. They support them with finding a new unit. And then once we are able to locate that unit, we pay all costs that's associated with that relocation, including moving, security deposit, first month's rent, any cost that's associated, that's paid through the BCAP and United Way partnership. Specifically for the security deposit program, the program is set up such that the tenants or prospective tenants come to us with a already like a letter of intent from a landlord that they have found themselves. And then we work hand in hand with the tenant and the landlord, and then we pay the security deposit directly to the landlord.
Thank you. And I know that we have some, hold your thought, Councilwoman Ramos. I know we do have some people from United Way that are going to testify. But I know that the Department of Housing, Stephanie Murdoch, has been very patient, and I'd like her to, she's the final agency to give some comments, and I'd like her to go ahead and present, and then Councilwoman Ramos we'll start with you with your question.
Thank you.
Um,
That's fine. Thank
Hi,
you.
Stephanie.
Great. Thank you very much, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Stephanie Murdoch, Legislative Liaison for the Department of Housing and Community Development. We stand by our bill report in support of the passage of this resolution, and we would defer to the Sheriff's Office as the agency most directly impacted by the resolution. Outside of enforcing the city's housing, zoning, building, and related codes, we're really limited as to how we can intervene when eviction proceedings arise. However, we are committed to helping landlords and renters understand their responsibilities under the various codes and providing equitable enforcement throughout the city. And while DHCD is not involved in eviction proceedings, the agency currently directs individuals facing eviction to legal assistance providers and is in the process of implementing landlord-tenant right to counsel in eviction cases, which went into effect last year. So this legislation provides eligible tenants with access to counsel in eviction proceedings and requires DHCD to fund organizations to conduct outreach and education regarding tenants' rights. Currently, we are working with legal assistance providers and community advocates to design and implement this program, as well as create education and outreach materials. We are also working to develop a legal services delivery model and collaborating with Baltimore area legal service providers who will provide the counsel required by the bill. DHCD has allocated $2.4 million in CDBG CV1 funds for legal services eviction prevention towards the Right to Counsel program. Additionally, we are involved in a rent court working group, and this group is made up of court staff, the sheriff's office, tenant advocates, landlord representatives, HABC, and DHCD staff, and usually meet monthly to discuss any issues around the eviction process. I won't get into the eviction assistance that we partnered with MOCFS because that was already discussed, but I will say that we stand by our report in support of this resolution, and we stand by to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And at this point, we'll go ahead and Councilwoman Ramos, your questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you so much. I have a question for Deputy Mayor Leach. In our hearing where the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success gave us an overview of all these programs, this was in July. The bill report and the presentation talked about that at that point in July, we had served close to 4,000 or a little over 4,000 households. And here it is 7 months later, and we're here. And so you've only done another 2,400 family or households. So I'm wondering, I would have expected to double the number by now, but I'm wondering if that's not a reasonable expectation. But I would imagine that we would have been, because we've kicked in the system, that we would have been able to serve way more households than just 2,400 households since July. Now the question could be also, these are obviously new households, right? So we're talking about new households, not the same one. So you're actually serving the 4,000 plus the additional 2, and then anyway. So I'm just I'm just trying to figure out what the numbers mean here.
Yep. So no, I appreciate that question. And I can definitely go back to make sure that we're giving you unduplicated counts, because I think that is, that's something I want to be pretty clear about. But what I'll say is, again, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of these cases are high touch, right? And so it takes a lot of our staff time to be able to process some of these applications, because it is that going back and forth between the tenants, between the landlords. It is, going through and certifying the application, ensuring that we have all the documents in place. So it's not like, so we're able to process as many applications as possible on daily. But a lot of times it takes multiple days and or weeks or longer to really get to a resolve with an application. But I'll confirm with you the figures to ensure that we are providing you unduplicated amounts.
Thank you. And does that mean, just going on this for a second, Madam Chair, Deputy Mayor Leach, does that, it seems to me that, the mediation piece is really critical. So I'm glad that folks are spending time on it. There are organizations that do that as well, mediate between landlords and tenants, like the Fair Housing Action Center, which I'm proud to be a founder of. What have you thought about maybe getting some additional folks? I mean, you had talked about getting more, people to be able to process applications, but there may need to be some other mediation that these folks know how to deal with, that, to be able to make sure that more applications can be processed.
Yep. So I totally agree. Again, one of the challenges that I highlighted is just capacity. And so, it's not just capacity to process, it's all of the supportive services that we need to provide. And so, if we get that additional, or when because I have a plan for adding the additional processing capacity, but as we get that additional processing capacity, then again, that frees us up to do additional case management. It provides us an opportunity to bring on additional partners and train them in our system so that they can provide that additional support. So for me, one of the biggest things that I'm looking to accomplish is to add just capacity to our overall program as it just continues to grow. And the only way we'll be able to get through the 5,000 plus applications, plus the additional applications that are coming in, is if we add that additional support for our team. Because quite frankly, our team is overwhelmed in this moment with just the sheer magnitude of the crisis and how many applications they are having to process per day. And so again, that's why, I'm focused on adding that additional capacity for the team. But I also want to be able to add some more of those partnerships, because the partnerships are what have been helping us get to those cases that we have not been able to get to on our own. So the Sheriff's Office, the Pandemic Rent Court, the Public Justice Center, those have all been positive partnerships. And then of course, the referrals that come from council.
And so you just said that there's about 5,000 plus people on the waiting list, basically.
There's 5,000 applications in the queue.
Mm-hmm. And
I just first 1 minute, please. I know there's people that want to testify, and we definitely appreciate your patience, but the committee comes first, and so you have to continue to be patient. We are taking public testimony. Thank you. Councilwoman Ramos, you have any more questions?
no, I think that's it. I look forward to the additional information. Thank you.
Any other members of the committee have any questions to any of the agencies that have presented at this time? Hearing none, now we'll go to public testimony. And I want to first say there are some instructions that you have to follow. So computer users, please use the raise hand function if you wish to testify. When called upon, please state your name. Telephone users will be unmuted. Callers will hear 2 beeps. If you do not wish to testify, please say so. If you do wish to testify, please state your name. And so now we're going to start with the raised hands. And I see two people no, oh, I'm pulling it up. Okay, there's about 5 people. And I do want to say, please just use your testimony. We're only going to allow maybe 2, 3 minutes. I don't want to really have to start timing it, but 2, 3 minutes at most. A lot of information has been given today, so
Hey, Madam Chair, we
yes.
did have a presentation from the United Way on additional resources.
That's who we're going to, yes.
Oh,
Are
perfect.
they listed on the attendees list?
Yeah, so we emailed
She's,
over a list of all the folks from United Way that would need to be elevated. I'm trying to find it. So it should be Scott Godbreed, and I'm sorry if I said your name incorrectly.
okay, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, right?
Mhm.
I think it's
And I
listed.
think a few of them are Anna Cooper. I see is elevated. Scott. I think they may be this.
You have the list? Okay.
Yeah, it looks like they're all elevated. So
All right, we're going to have them go first, and then the other people that seem to be getting a little impatient, all I can say is you have to be patient. There's a format that was agreed upon from the sponsor, and we're going to follow that. So we're going to start with the testimony from United Way of Central Maryland. So do we want to start with Scott Godfrey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our presenters are Anna Cooper and Marcus Scott, and I'm here as backup in case one is unable to speak.
Okay, thank you. Anna, are you there?
Yes, I am here. Marcus is starting out for our team.
Marcus, you want to start?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, committee members, for having us a part of this important conversation. My name is Marcus Scott. I am the director of the Baltimore City STEP program here at the United Way, which is a landlord-facing model in which we are addressing rental assistance and a kind of bulk settlement approach with landlords. Here with me, I have my colleague Anna Cooper, who is the director of the relocation program, which provides housing assistance and resources to households that have been impacted by the COVID crisis. So we did have a slide that we sent over, but I was trying to pull it up on my screen, which is not allowing me to
Well,
share.
all the committee members were sent everything.
Gotcha. But it will not allow me to share my screen, but we can keep going. That's
Go
not
ahead.
a problem, and any information I can copy and paste in the chat. So
Keep going.
yeah, I will swing it over to Anna for any
Good afternoon.
on the housing programs.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Anna Cooper, Director of the Relocation Program. We received an emergency solutions grant to fully staff our relocation program with 8 housing resource coordinators. Coordinators support households with relocation assistance, brief case management, and resource coordination. We partner with the CAP centers to obtain referrals and to provide financial client assistance for security deposits, 3 months rental assistance, and moving costs. We are contracted to serve 75 individuals and have served 88 to date. We are on track to far exceed our goal. A success story that I'm happy to share with you is about a single father with full custody of his child. They were living in an unlicensed unit not meant for habitation due to infestation. We were able to move them into a new unit with utilities included in a week of receiving the referral. Thank you for the opportunity to share information about United Way's community impact.
Thank you, Anna. So I will jump in with some of our targeted information for our STEP program. So our STEP program was granted about 16 million in ERET funding. To date, we have engaged with over 100 apartment communities and scattered site landlords, providing full payouts of about $4.5 million in funding to over 500 households. We recently have provided about $3.7 million in advance payments to landlords to prevent any further evictions of submissions to our program. So we had an advance payment strategy in which landlords could opt into receiving up to 50% advance payment for their submission made to our STEP program. We've also partnered with Baltimore City Community Action Partnership with their eviction prevention efforts to begin working with them to address some of the backlog that we've mentioned with their queue. So what we're doing is we will be addressing some of the cases within the larger multifamily housing apartment communities and begin processing those applications and efforts to prevent many evictions that are slated for this year. With this new aggressive plan, we have hired 5 new full-time project managers that will be devoted to these transfer cases and working with landlords to process their bulk submissions to this program. So one thing that's key about this partnership is duplication of funds and rental assistance benefits. So we do partner and coordinate with Baltimore City Community Action Partnership and their neighborly portal to try to prevent duplication of funds, because as mentioned before, tenants are only able to receive a certain amount of rental assistance, and we want to ensure that we're not both paying out the same amount of funds for the same months for tenants that have submitted for that assistance. So we appreciate the time for you letting us speak today briefly about our programs, and we look forward to continuing our partnership with the Baltimore City Community Action Partnership.
Okay, thank you. I'm just was just checking committee members' times. I'm getting emails from several committee members, so we got to move on. We got to move a little faster, I guess that we'd say. Thank you for your presentation. Any questions at this point? Okay, moving on. We're now going to go down the list to attendees. And remember, you got 2 minutes, and we're going to start at the top. And I think the first name is Catherine Howard, I guess. Oh, I'm sorry, it's not on my thing. Albert Turner is on my list at lower.
Yes.
Albert Turner, go ahead, Albert, 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Vice President Middleton and members of Economic and Community Development. My name is Albert Turner, and I'm a staff attorney for the Public Justice Center and the Human Right to Housing team, as well as a member of Baltimore Renters United. I'm here today to request a couple of things. 1, that the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success begin paying tenants directly. 2, requesting that the sheriff post all court notices on individual tenants' apartments. And 3, we are requesting that Baltimore City Council with Mayor Scott, Sheriff Anderson, and Administrative Judge Weinstein suspend all evictions as was done on March 12, 2020. All of these requests are to achieve the goal of keeping people in their homes to curb the spread of COVID-19 and to reduce the level of harm evictions do to our community. We are in a very special place right now where the city has the money specifically designated to make sure tenants are not evicted. Based on the latest census data, over 23,000 households in Baltimore City are facing a rent-based eviction. The average rent debt is $2,500 for a total arrearage of $58 million. As of 2 weeks ago, there were more people hospitalized in Maryland because of COVID than the previous high in January 2021. COVID-19 and the eviction crisis has had and will continue to have a disparate impact on Black and Brown households without the city's involvement. This is not by happenstance. History is not something that has happened. It is currently happening. This country and the city's history of racial segregation, racist disinvestment, racist criminalization, and housing discrimination have all created the present that we live in. While persons of color comprise 52% of Maryland's population, they comprise of 79% of those households impacted by the COVID eviction crisis. Without major changes, we are looking at citizens, the majority of whom are Black and brown, on the streets, even though we have the resources to stop that. With all that being said, again, we request City Council take the following steps immediately. Advocate to suspend evictions in accordance with the public health crisis of COVID-19. On March 12, 2020, then Mayor Young, together with Sheriff Anderson and then Administrative Judge Waxman, halted evictions, citing the World Health Organization and Centers for Disease Control, declaring the COVID-19 outbreak a public health emergency. There is nothing preventing council, the sheriff, and the mayor from making proposals and plans to the court to request a temporary shutdown of evictions now. One of the biggest ways to make sure COVID-19 numbers remain low is to make sure people have homes to stay in. Being able to quarantine is one of the best ways to curb the spread of coronavirus. However, without a home, that becomes almost impossible. As we have done before, we can do again by working collaboratively with the mayor, the sheriff, and the courts to suspend evictions during the rise of COVID-19 infections. We're also asking for the Mayor's Office of Children's and Family Success to pay tenants directly when landlords are refusing to cooperate with rental assistance. The current practice that MOCFS pay landlords eviction prevention funds directly has kept many tenants from taking part in the program and has given landlords undue power to decide who gets to stay in their home and who does not. This was the case with one of our PJC clients who is currently looking at eviction on January 31st, 2022. The client, an after-school teacher, lost their full-time job at the beginning of the pandemic. Naturally, they fell behind on rent. They applied with MOCFS in spring of 2021 to help pay back rent. However, their landlord, Henderson Webb, did not want to accept funds from MOCFS, which forced MOCFS to withdraw the application. With their landlord unilaterally deciding that client could not redeem the property as prescribed by law, they are facing eviction in 6 days. Clients should not have to rely on their landlord to decide if they should be able to stay in their home if there is money to pay off their balance. MOCFS must begin paying tenants directly when landlords do not want to engage in the application process. In fact, federal regulations encourage local jurisdictions to pay tenants directly when the landlord refuses to participate in the program. Prince George's County and Baltimore County make such direct tenant payments with federal funds, and the mayor's office previously stated that the policy would be changed by January 1st, 2022, yet no such publicly available policy is in place. Lastly, to reiterate, we would like the sheriff's office to post eviction complaints to doors of multifamily properties, not just the outside of the building as stated by the Attorney General. It is incredibly important that eviction complaint notices, the notice that informs you of an upcoming eviction trial date, be placed on the individual apartment door of the tenant, not just in the complex lobby or bulletin board. In accordance with the Attorney General, the correct interpretation of Real Property Code 841B4 and Public Law Code 93 provides that notice of eviction must be affixed to the tenant's individual apartment. Affixing the notice on a tenant's individual unit gives them as much time as possible to make arrangements with their job or for alternative childcare so that they can come to court to challenge any eviction. We have a number of tenants who have never received notice on their doors who didn't see their notice until too late because it was not posted on their personal apartment. Tenants need time to seek legal advice and representation when needed. It is fundamental to due process that people should be given fair notice when they are brought to court to potentially lose their home. The sheriff used to post to the individual unit doors that they can do again. We cannot live in the past where over 65,000 families each year were put out on the streets each year in Baltimore City. We have the resources to make that thousands of families remain in their homes. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify. We urge Baltimore City Council, the sheriff, and the mayor's office to take action in the point stated.
Thank you. And the committee has your written testimony as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Catherine Howard.
Am I unmuted, Madam Chair?
Yes, you are. Hi.
Great, thank you. Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to testify. I'm Catherine Howard. I'm General Counsel for Regional Management, Inc. We are a Baltimore City and Baltimore County landlord, with most of our properties being here in the city. I also represent the Maryland Multi-Housing Association, which is a multifamily rental property trade group, of which I'm sure the council is very familiar. There are a couple of things that I think that need to be discussed here, and so I'll just start out and try to go through them. I think that one of the things that has been lost in this conversation is that while absolutely we understand everyone is suffering in this pandemic, I think that one of the things to keep in mind is that landlords are not immune from that problem of the pandemic. We have our bills to pay too. We have mortgages, taxes, repairs, and salaries to pay. And when we do not have any rent coming in, unfortunately, that is a serious problem for the viability of all of our properties. There's been a de facto rent moratorium going on because of the nature of the way the courts are operating at this time. A failure to pay rent notice filed today will not get a hearing for at least 6 months. And that is things that used to take 30 to 45 days where are now taking 6 months to get a trial. That is an amazing amount of time to wait for rent to come in. The other problem is that there are a lot of problems that are going on with some of the landlords not understanding that they have to wait for a certain period of time before they can actually file if they have participated in the programs that we have. I want to compliment the folks from BCAP and the United Way. Regional management has been working with them since the very first program was initiated. And I can tell you that 777 of our tenants have been helped through one or the other of those programs. And we could not be more grateful to all of the assistance that they have given us. And we have been very happy to participate in that program, all of those programs. One thing that came up in some of the questioning with the sheriff's office was about the question of whether or how this eviction notification system works. Right now, there is a statewide law that says that there has to be a 10-day pre-filing notice given to the tenant that there is rent owed and how much pursuant to state law. That's before you even get to file your failure to pay rent notice. After but when you do and you get a judgment, then the procedure that is followed is in Article 13 of the Baltimore City Code, Subtitle 2 and Subtitle 8A, Subtitle 7 and 8A. Essentially, it's absolutely true. The landlord, the sheriff gets the warrant of restitution. That's a court order that he or she cannot ignore. The only person who can mitigate that court order is another judge. That's why the statute, the real property statute, says that the only time that there could be a postponement of an eviction for instance, bad weather, that is up to the administrative judge. That's not up to the sheriff. The sheriff has no discretion under the way this works.
At this point, can you say some final words so we can move on?
Sure.
We have a long list to get through.
Sure. I certainly understand that. I think that if you read through that the Article 13 8A eviction chattels section, that was a very very hard fought but very nonpartisan bill that does give that puts the responsibility on the landlord to make sure that the tenant is notified by law of when the exact date of their eviction is going to happen. And we have all done that. It has been in effect since 2007. It continues to be in effect, and it is absolutely one of the best ways that the landlord and the tenant work together to make sure that the tenant is aware of what is about to happen. I think I'll just close with this and thank you very much for letting me speak. And I think that if please continue to involve the landlords in this situation. We are the partners with the council, with the rest of the folks who are involved in this situation. We're all in this together, and we certainly do want to continue to be a participant in all of the discussions around these issues.
Thank you for your testimony. Now we're going to move on, and I'm just going to go down the list of the remainder raised hands. These people that I called on earlier were basically on a list. So now I'm going to start with Robin Davis.
Hello?
Hello, Robin
Yes.
Davis? Yes, you
Yes,
have.
my name is Robin Davis, and I was diagnosed with brain cancer 2020. And I was paying rent. I got my Social Security in 3 months from my neurosurgeon, and I was just giving my whole Social Security check. I found out about the mayor's office, the relief fund, and they made the MOCFS made a promise, which I have the letter from LaShawn Moore, that they were going to pay 100%. I was caught up on, I kept on paying because I was scared they were putting notes on my door that I was going to get evicted. I have 2 children. Well, eventually, to make a long story short, I found black mold in the basement while my kids were doing virtual learning. I hold the OSHA 10 card. I done major construction in Philadelphia before I got the cancer. To make a long story short, after they found that out, they instead of the threatening eviction notices, after they signed with the mayor's office that the mayor was going to give them the money, they didn't get the money. One time I think they got $1,000 and it took them maybe 10 months. And the other time they sent 8,000 and it took maybe 8 months. But they were saying, we're going to kick you out. We're going to kick you out. We're going to kick you out. So I called a Cancer Society and they helped out as well. So total, we gave $15,000, but my rent was only, it would have been $12,000. So I got evicted, went to court. I took it upstairs on the 3rd floor. The 3rd floor said, I think you should go to the news. All this is illegal. Where is the rest of the money? So I'm homeless. I've still been homeless. Me and my daughter tried to purchase a home because my daughter is of age now. And I got a $4,000 collection bill that's holding me from closing on a home.
So, Ms. Davis, and also I want to take a minute and ask Deputy Mayor Leach if she could put in the chat a contact number and so this can be, they can work and help you. And we're going to continue to pray for for you to get healthy as well and stay strong. And she's going to put contact information in the chat so they can help you with relocation or whatever your needs are.
Yeah, because I'm sleeping on a mattress on a floor at a friend's house since August.
Believe me, your testimony is very important, and they're going to put that information in the chat. And
I have all supporting documents of everything I've said.
Okay, have all that together. Thank you for sharing your testimony.
Thank you.
And now we're going to move on to. Oh, yes, go. Director Whitaker, go ahead.
Yes, I actually put my information in the chat to her privately already for her to contact me directly.
Oh, thank you so much, Director Whitaker. You're on it. Okay, Christina Flowers, you're up.
Am I unmuted, Madam?
Yes, you are. How are you?
How are you, Madam Vice President? And good afternoon to all the council as well. and some of the other supportive services. You know, I learned so much, so I'm glad to be have been sitting and listening. I just really want to make sure that we have great contact information. I just want to introduce myself. I am the director of Belvedere Real Care Providers. We specialize in encampments and the unsheltered, chronically homeless individuals. So I think the most important statement I can make is how critical and life-saving it is for all of our resources and agencies to work together. And I definitely like to thank Madam Angela from the CAP program. I think maybe some of my other individuals might be caught up in that 5,000 loop somewhere, but they have assisted at least 6 of our families that are housed. So definitely kudos to the CAP program and how they've been working to help individuals. Also to yourself, Madam Faith, thank you very much for the work that you have been doing since you've been aboard. But again, I think that's my biggest part. And I don't know if the sheriff office is on, but I know the strongest resource is we work with 2 sheriffs that do evictions. And it's really important that we have that group equipped with the resources so that when they do get on the scene, we can prevent any type of trauma or any type of extra services to families. And I like these 2 sheriffs because they know how to pick up the phone because we do housing first also. So that's something I think we should really look into to make sure that our sheriff department is equipped because they're sometimes the first ones to arrive on a scene and engage these individuals that could be in trauma, distress. We have been on a scene where we have taken families to avoid a CPS. We never want to do CPS. I know that's something that might be in the makings, but I thank you so much. I thank you guys for listening, and I look forward to more conversations like this. And I'm also meeting with the council. I did put in a proposal to all you guys that we could sit down and meet about consulting with the city agencies so that we all can work together and get these resources to prevent individuals from being under the bridge and from being in the woods where we specialize and work at every day. So I thank you guys, and let's all work together. Thank you, Madam Vice. Thank you, Madam Vice President.
Thank you, Ms. Flowers. I know you've been in the fight of helping homelessness for many, many years. And yes, the sheriff's office is still at this meeting and listening. So
Yes, awesome.
now we're going to move on to the next person, Morgan. It's just the first name, Morgan. Are you there?
I just want to make sure it stays unmuted while I access the template so I can be time efficient in my testimony. So here we go. Okay, good afternoon, Madam Vice President Middleton and members of the Economic Community Development. My name is Morgan Herrera L, advocate of Vincent Penix, and I am here today to provide testimony on the illegal eviction prevention of illegal eviction procedures that I've witnessed while assisting him. The removal of this complex, 4610 Penn Lucy Road, the Hills Apartment H, removal or non-posting by the Hills Apartments leasing agent or managers, double scheduling of hearings for breach of lease and non-payment of rent simultaneously, false charges of breach of lease to get my client evicted because of the stay or the procedural 90-day eviction stay for citizens under the mayor's EPP. A sitting judge biased against the disabled unemployed defendant in a breach of lease case that had a criminal component and made a ruling that he breached the lease with no evidence, later non-processed with criminal charges of the identical civil case. denial of waivers for appeal bonds for my client who is out of work because of his disability. Also, while assisting and witnessing this, um, it was uncovered that they were unlicensed and that there was mold existent that I had to pay for out of my pocket to get testing and verification, which I have supporting document and have provided to other members of that community to assist. With that being said, I request a favorable report on the City Council Bill 21-0083R and urge the Baltimore City Council as well as the Mayor's Office to take action. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person on the list, Carissa Hatfield. Hello, Carissa? Carissa, there seems to be some problems connecting.
I was just texting him. Yeah.
How you doing?
Hi. How you doing?
Okay, I'm
I'm good. How things news? I think we've
more than one. We have
the
on evictions, which
landlord or the what do you call them?
Rachel needed to leave because she is
right now. Muting.
Could
everyone mute yourself except for the person that's going to be speaking? Thank you. Now we're going to try Carissa again. I don't think that was her before. Carissa?
Hi, yes, I'm here.
Yes. Yes. We got a couple minutes.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Madam Vice President Middleton and members of the Economic and Community Development Committee. My name is Carissa Hatfield, and I am a staff attorney in the Housing Justice Project at the Homeless Persons Representation Project. Thank you to Councilman Burnett for introducing this resolution and bringing this important issue to the forefront. The first thing I want to say is to lift up all of the comments that have been made by tenants and by my colleague at the bar, Mr. Albert Turner at the Public Justice Center, regarding the importance of these issues and what we're asking the council to address today. I do want to make clear, despite other comments that have been made today, evictions are in fact happening. There is no de facto moratorium on evictions. 600 families are scheduled to be evicted this month in Baltimore City, 71 families this week alone. So I think it's an unfair characterization to say that it's not happening, because it is. And it continues to happen even as we're having this hearing today. We just want to expand a little bit on some of these things that have been said today and some of the things that we're asking for. As far as the sheriff's office, what we're really looking for and asking for today is that the sheriff's office be held accountable for the actions that it's taking, and that it work with the mayor's office and the courts to stop evictions in Baltimore City during the Omicron variant of the pandemic. We would also ask that tenants receive direct payments from the Baltimore City action centers. At this point, we're seeing significant delays. As BCAP testified, part of this is because landlords are high touch and are creating challenges in getting applications out the door quickly. If landlords refuse to cooperate with these programs or having significant delays in cooperating with these programs, tenants should be paid directly in order to avoid eviction. I have personally worked with tenants who have seen delays from application to payment of 9 to 10 months. I have a client currently with an attorney who as a result is being expedited, who has been waiting for over 4 months for an application to be processed. There's no tax consequences for tenants, as Councilman Dorsey pointed out, for those payments to happen. And we would just ask that these actions be taken at this time. And we look forward to a favorable report on this resolution from the council. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Corey Warren, you're next. Corey Warren.
All right. Thank you for.
Thank
can
you
hear-
for your patience.
No problem. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, you're
All right.
on.
Perfect. My name is Corey Warren. I'm a housing staff attorney with Disability Rights Maryland, formerly the Maryland Disability Law Center. We are the protection and advocacy agency in Maryland, and our job is to advance the civil rights of people with disabilities. What we have seen in the last 2 years is the disability community has had a substantial loss of income, even higher than what we've seen in the general population. 1 in 5 persons with disabilities who was employed pre-pandemic lost their job, compared to 1 in 7 for the general population, which has led to people with disabilities facing eviction at much higher levels. So going back to kind of the specifics, one, I would like to address the issue outside of the AG opinion stating that notice should be placed on the individual doors of tenants. Placing notices in a common room can be a public health hazard, because you are requiring people who may be required to be in quarantine, even with Omicron, and they cannot leave their homes. So you are having people who are not receiving these notices because they are under quarantine. So I wanted to address that from the public health perspective. And then 2, we do represent individuals in court. We have seen issues with landlords refusing to accept ERAP funds or delaying it intentionally until they're able to get a warrant of restitution. And we have seen cases where warrants of restitution that were issued were not dismissed by the landlord despite receiving ERAP funds later on. So we have seen some significant bad behavior from landlords in regards to how these funds have been issued out for tenants. And we are asking for direct to tenant payments in order to avoid these issues involving the landlords. And I know I am one of many, so I will end my testimony here so the next person can speak. Madam Vice President, I believe you're muted.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. And now we're moving to Deidris Dowdridge. Forgive me if I pronounce your name wrong.
Yes, that's fine. Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes, you're on.
Yeah. Okay. Hello. Thank you, Madam Vice President Middleton and members of the Economic Community and Development. My name is Deidris Dowdridge, and I'm a housing tenant advocate for Baltimore Renters United. I'm here today to provide you with additional information on behalf of a tenant I met last week named Brandis. Brandis is a tenant who is facing eviction because her landlord isn't accepting the rental assistance from the city. Brandis worked as a teacher's aide for special needs children, and has lost her job due to COVID. Brandis has worked jobs in between, but still struggles to get back on her feet and is unable to catch up on the rent. Brandis has 2 small children because her landlord refuses to work with her. Her and her children are now facing eviction and homelessness, and a growing pandemic. Brandis didn't choose to not pay her rent. It's just that she is unable to, and that is a big difference. Brandis isn't alone in facing this issue, as this is a common problem with tenants in the city. How can the city solve this? The answer is simple. When the landlord refuses to accept money from the city, it would make sense to give tenants the money to cover the rent for up to at least 18 months so that tenants can stay in their homes. I would love to see more partnerships with the city on this issue. With that being said, I request a favorable report of City Council Bill 21-0083R and urge the Baltimore City Council as well as the Mayor's Office to take action. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Tashawn Ross.
Hi, I'm here just pulling it. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, you're on.
Good evening, Madam Vice President Middleton and members of the Economic and Community Development. My name is Tashawn Ross. I'm a renter at Mallow Hills Schweb Partner Management. I am here today to provide you my personal experience that harm it has caused me and my family. First, I would like to lift up this community issue with notifications, like a lot of tenants wasn't even aware that an eviction was filed by the landlord. I never received anything in the mail because the mail was backed up, and my landlords never posted anything in the buildings. My landlord just stopped replying to me, refused to take my payments from me, nor were they willing to work with agencies or organizations that were trying to prevent my eviction. Recently, my landlord notified me 3 days before a court date to let me know that they were refusing to participate in any programs I had applied for and that they were moving forward with the eviction. Landlords continues to add on fees to late payments, even though the mayor's office put a hold on all late fees. They don't answer the phones or reply to emails. They refuse to work with tenants to bring our accounts to good standings. While living in Mallow Hills, I have experienced nothing but hardship. It's unfair that we try everything in our power to pay landlords so we can have a place to stay with our kids, and they are making it impossible to do. They rather see us homeless instead of working with us. Lastly, I want to let you know that this entire experience has traumatized me and my family. Not knowing whether or not we are going to be evicted, homeless, continuously harassed by my landlord is hard to comprehend. The emotional harm and anxiety cannot be described. I hope you will take into account my testimony and the real harm that is being done to families across Baltimore City. I request a favorable report on City Council Bill 210083R, urging the Baltimore City Council as well as the mayor's office to take action. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, and there's one more hand raised left, and that's Vincent Penix.
Yes, it is, Miss Middleton.
Yes.
Good evening. I said good evening. I said I finally met you. I asked you and the respectful committee. I'm traumatized with this whole eviction process. To pivot off of what Miss Morgan said and Robin Davis, we always living at the Huntington Hills Apartments at 4601 Penn Lucy. This apartment complex is inundated with black mold. They're not licensed to lease. And when we had these tenant meetings, we brought this fact to management. What management request was, they started putting us out, the ones that made complaints and issues. In fact, they went as so far as the receptionist, along with management, Crystal, well, I know she's the office management. She got one of her employees to file sexual allegations against me because I raised complaints about the black mold and the and they weren't licensed to rent. And on that premise, what they did was, because I was under Brandon Scott's and Jack Young's eviction prevention program, they couldn't put me out. So they circumvented that process and they got me with the breach of lease. And in the lease that we signed, it speaks about behavior issues. So they filed a breach of lease predicated on the behavior issues. And along with criminal charges, they filed criminal charges against me. At the time, I was driving buses for Metro in Gaithersburg. I lost my job because of these frivolous allegations. My mother passed. I had to pay $10,000 out of pocket for that. And then my brother passed me shortly thereafter. Just recently, I said the judge downtown Baltimore non-processed these charges. These frivolous charges. I said they were made to hurt me. And I said, and during this process, I said because of these charges, Amazon wouldn't get me. I said UPS, no job will hire me because of these frivolous, baseless allegations. And also and the judges that sits on this bench at the Maryland Rent Court, they are sad because a couple of dates that I had to go to rent court, I had I had to go to circuit court because of these allegations that this rental that the receptionist made against me. So when I took my issue, when I filed I filed a postponement with the district court, letting them know that I got a case in the circuit court. And the judge at the district court said, I don't care, you got a case in the circuit court, and denied my postponement. And predicated off of that, they evicted me. The mayor's office, and okay, what no one say about Marilyn Mosby office, they all got together and felt my family a home. I said Kim Sawyer, Marilyn Mosby office, Miss Middleton, even you, and your constituents, even yourself called me often assistance. I salute you. I salute you. You know what I'm saying? But the eviction process and how that's all done is flawed. It's flawed.
Thank you so
I
much.
thank
And
you.
we all feel your trauma, and thank you so much for your testimony. I do, we're taking note. If you still need some assistance, I know you're on the phone and you probably can't see the chat, so there is some contact information. Please continue to reach out if you need some more help, and we'll direct you to those services. It sounds like there's some housing issues going on still, and we're here to help and try to put those pieces together. So thank you for your testimony. We're now finished with the hand raised, and we're going to see, I think there's three, I was told there's three callers. So we're going to unmute the first one, and remember, you're going to hear 2 beeps. Caller number 13, you're up.
I'm not testifying today.
Okay, thank you. Caller number 5.
Hello.
Hello. Did you want to testify?
Yes.
Yes, you have 2
Yes.
minutes. You're on.
Okay.
State your name.
Madam Vice
State your
President?
name.
Yes. My name is Karima Vigo Calderon, and I'm a renter in Baltimore City. I'm here today to provide to you with additional information and my personal experience with eviction. Now, my experience as a tenant here in Baltimore has been grossly unprofessional and emotionally overwhelming and exhausting. Okay, this cyclical process to validate application resources is very hypocritical and overall costly for tenants, given the various requirements and significantly increased rents for unqualified units. Now, why aren't these landlords held at a higher right of documentation in order to do business and collect rent? Most conversations here today seem to be surrounded about funding and lack thereof. Instead of the root cause, I believe, is the problem being the property not being upkept, and the initial agreement between the renter and the landlord fails, and the only recourse that the renter has is to withhold rent, but the landlord can outright come up with all type of schematical ways to put the tenant out. Now, I say this because there are many channels of scrutiny for the perfect tenant by way of these overnight property management companies and inhumane automated credit decisions. But who assures that the landlord has the proper documentation during that transaction? Where's the ability to scrutinize the qualifications and backgrounds of these landlords that hide behind the property management companies? Now, when these landlords don't have a license, it's often followed by failure to upkeep the property in livable conditions up to and including mold. And tenants have little to no recourse in any matter, and tenants are evicted with or without notice for utilizing the only collateral that they have, which is failure to pay rent. Now, there are other sources out there. You can put it in escrow and stuff like that. But when your landlord is connected, and then they can go and pull strings in the city and make it seem like the property is complete, you have to literally go back behind them and call the city and have them come back out to say, here, no, it is not complete. Now, in my case, my landlord does not have a license. So he uses random property management companies to manage the properties. And then when trying to sue him in court, you have to sue the management company, which no longer does business with the menaces. I call it the menaces. It's Rob Management. You know, meanwhile, his method of recourse is unlawful. His retaliatory actions are harassing. He tried to hit me with a car, confiscated my mail. He towed my personal car. He literally caused me to lose my job. He called my boss and told my boss that my boss needed to render my payroll check to him for payment. I mean, it's gotten beyond bearable, and there's no other recourse but get another court date, of which he doesn't have a license to rent. So then what? How can I leave? I have no real money to leave. And because of my urgent need to relocate, I'm extremely unprepared and in desperate need of assistance, which apparently I don't think I make enough according to the recent phone call I just received. So I don't make enough for help. And I have, I'm credit challenged. So therefore, me and my daughter, we're facing eviction. And there has to be a voice for the people, not the landlords. And with that being said, I request favorable report on the City Council's Bill 21-0083R and urge the Baltimore City Council as well. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony, and we're going to get someone to reach out to you as well. Moving on, I think there's one.
Thank you.
I think there's one or two more callers. Caller number 6, are you there? Caller number 6. Caller number 6. Okay, let's go to. And then we have Grayson Wiggins.
Nothing
Are
today,
you
Madam Chair. Nothing today. Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you. So I think that wraps it up with. Oh, wait a minute, we might have one more. Robert Morgan? Robert Morgan.
I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Are you Robert Morgan?
I'm Robert Morgan, Miss Vice President.
We're ready for your testimony. 2 minutes.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Vice President and honorable members of the council, thank you for hearing from me. I'm happy at this time to offer my personal experience, and I want to focus the spotlight on Councilman Burnett and Mayor Faith Leach, who collaborated to help me in my situation. I worked up until March of 2021 when COVID stopped my employment. I incurred rental arrears. At that time, Mayor Faith Leach wasn't involved in the process, but she came in, cleaned house, and collaborated with Councilman Christopher Burnett, who intervened in my behalf and got me rental assistance paid directly, which I remitted to the landlord. The intersection in this crisis for both the tenants and the landlord is resources, and the role of government is critical. I draw from the remarks of Councilman Dorsey when he talked about information being made available publicly. I'm a senior, 67 years old, and I don't have the capability of using technology. In fact, my phone blinked off 3 times during this hearing. I come from the phone booth age. We need help in terms of having that public information Mayor Leach talked about with the new federal guidelines and assistance available, placed in public libraries, and also it should be placed in maintenance organizations can get access to, because we need that kind of, we don't do well with machines. Secondly, I call upon this council and the mayor's office to reach out to the powers that be in our state legislature and make them understand that just as much as inclement weather is a basis for avoiding eviction, surely a pandemic where people are dying is equally as important. And resources should be poured into these programs. Baltimore City should not be neglected. We are a focal point of this crisis. And a resolution should be passed, joined in by the mayor, calling upon the governor, the Senate president, and the Speaker of the House to pour resources into the city to avert this crisis and the stain upon the dignity of this city that's unfolding before our eyes. And with that, I will thank you for hearing me. I thank my councilman for his intervention and tireless efforts on my behalf. And I thank Mayor Faith Leach as she goes forward to get me the other assistance that I'm entitled to at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for your important testimony. And just for another point of information, anyone that's facing eviction, you can, that's on this hearing that still needs help, you can, there's an email address you can use, angela.whitaker@baltimorecity.gov, and you'll get directed into help, the kind of help that you need. So I think that was, Mr. Morgan was our last call. Oh, I'm sorry. We have one. Shamara Thomas, I think you're the last one. Hello? Are you there? Shamara Thomas?
I have no I'm not testifying.
Okay, thank you. We're just checking. Okay, I think that's it with the testimony, and I do have one question for the sheriff's office. There were like 3 or 4 items that we jotted down. Jason, are you the contact? Do you have should we contact you?
Yes, madam.
Okay, thank you so much. That
And
answers that.
Sophia and Nina have my information.
Sophia, okay. So that answers that question as far as contact from the committee. I know Vincent Pinnock was one of the people that testified, and someone, Jamal Simpson, wants his information. So we'll deal with that offline. And then now at this point, does the sponsor have any final words? And then I think we will go on and move for a vote. There's no amendments to this to consider. So sponsor Christopher Burnett, do you have any final words before we go ahead and make a motion to move this resolution?
Thank you. Absolutely. I just want to again thank you all, both the committee, the agency leaders, and the folks that have been impacted and are advocating for us to do more. We definitely have a crisis on our hands that does require all of us to work together and do our part to not only help our constituents, but also to build the capacity to respond, because this crisis isn't over, the pandemic isn't over, and people are really feeling the pain and the hurt that comes with an eviction and experiencing homelessness, whether that be temporary or long term. And so we have to do more, and I'm thankful for this conversation as a jump off point as we continue our work to prevent this from impacting even more families in Baltimore City. So with that, I'll step back and allow the committee to vote. Thank you.
Is there a motion to move the resolution?
So moved.
So moved by Councilwoman Ramos and second by Council Member Bullock. This will move favorable without any amendments. Chair Middleton, yes. Councilman Bullock
Yes.
is a yes. Councilman Conway
Yes.
is a yes. Councilman Dorsey
Yes.
is a yes. Councilman Glover
Yes.
is a yes. Councilwoman Ramos
Yes.
is a yes. And Councilmember Stokes
Yes.
is a yes. So this was completely favorable from every member, and this will move to second reader at the next council meeting. And I want to thank everyone for attending today's hearing, and you have a wonderful and safe day. Thank you all.